Hey, welcome everyone to another Art in the Boardroom. And as you know, we've got Arthur Gillis with us. I saw him walking around a little bit earlier around here, and I said, "You're walking around like you own the place." But you used to. Arthur said to me not to do a long intro, so I'm not, but I'll do a little bit of an intro. So we got a Boykie from Oudtshoorn originally, being introduced by a Boykie from Zidel. Arthur spent over 50 years in the hospitality business. He grew Protea Hotels, then he sold it to Marriott, then had a management business running that for about 15 years. And the focus of today is going to be around the lessons. What are some of the lessons that we can learn from this? Arthur, what are some of those lessons that you learn over 50 years of running a business like this?
Right, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a few lessons. This is going to go very, very quickly. Promise you that. In front of you, you all got a piece of paper. Write THV on the top of the paper. THV is take-home value. And each person's THV is going to be completely different to the next person. So Protea Hotels was started on the 1st of July, 1984 with no money. Fortunately, we've got most of that left. And we had two employees, myself and Otto Stelic, who eventually became our chairman. And then we got a PA, so we increased our labor force by 50%. And on the 1st of April 2014, we sold the company to Marriott, 16,000 employees, 128 hotels, 9 countries. So we got very, very lucky along the way, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we got so lucky. It's actually not the first time I sold the company. First time I sold it was on the 1st of July 2007. Sold it to an Australian outfit who were planning on being the biggest hotel group in the world. So I sold it to an Australian company which was driven by private equity. I have a fundamental dislike of private equity. In fact, I have a hatred for private equity because it's neither. It's not private nor equity. It's public debt. That's what it should be called. And that's what they do. They gear the company up. And I sold it to them. Then they asked me, I sold all my shares. They offered me shares in their business or cash. I said, I haven't done due diligence on your company, but I have done due diligence on cash. So if it's all the same with you, I'll take cash, which we did. Lucky, because they went insolvent. We then bought it back for R1. We had a clash, not of, I don't know. We didn't fight about stuff. We just had a complete clash of culture. And I wasn't prepared to negotiate that culture. It's not the way we operate. It's not the way we built Protea. So that was the end of it. And then I paid R1 and bought it back. And then we sold it again. Okay. Some lessons. The world is absolutely chaotic. We know there's chaos out there. And if anything, it's getting worse. It's a turmoil. Everybody's like, people say, what do you think of America's policy? I say, when I left Cape Town this morning, or now, or after the meeting, or when? Because it's changing. Whatever you think it is, it's not right. And to that, I found a quote by a guy called Professor Itzhak Adizes. I follow him slavishly. He's a tenured professor at Stanford. He has now done an analysis on over 20,000 companies globally, Adizes Institute, and he's recognized as one of the best thinkers in management ever. And I've been very privileged to become friends with him when he came to South Africa, and I've traveled all over the world with him and so on. He's now an old man, but he's still very, very smart and very honored. And what he says is that chaos and complexity are the downfall of any business. And that really genius business leaders take complexity and convert it to simplicity. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that, and let's see whether they resonate with you. Because remember, we had 16,000 people that all had to go more or less in the same direction. And that's like herding fleas, because every time you open the barrel, they all jump everywhere. And you got to get them to believe the same stuff. So the first thing's a question. What is the purpose of business? What is the purpose of business? Hello, anybody?
Solve a problem.
To solve a problem. What problem? Good answer. It's the right answer to a different question. What's the purpose of business? Make money. Anybody else? Any advances on that? I'd suggest we think about it like this. Yes, add value. So, okay. So a lot of people say those kind of things. I'm telling you what my definition is, not neither right nor wrong, but it's my definition. My definition is the purpose of every single business in the world is the acquisition to get and the maintenance to keep customers. That's it, beginning and end. There's nothing more than that. The profit, yes, we need to make a profit. That's the goal. But if you focus on the profit, I presume all of you are going to be playing in the paddle competition. If you focus on the score, I promise you're going to lose. If you focus that you want to get the ball to bounce twice on the other side of the net, wonderful. You've got a very good chance of winning. That's what happens when you confuse the purpose with the goal. People who look at the scoreboard never win. So our purpose was the acquisition and maintenance of customers. Now, when you teach your staff that, and everybody understands that, because you cannot tell me a business in the world, whether it's a medical practice or whether it's a car dealership or whether you're selling shoes, is the acquisition to get and the maintenance to keep. Next one. How do we know whether we're meeting the guest expectation? Easy. So I came up with a formula. S is equal to R minus E. Success is results minus expectations. Okay? Now, if I tell you that we are going to Singita this weekend, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would your expectation be? 10. It's probably the best hotel in the world. It's very, very difficult to get a 10. But if you're going to the Protea Hotel in Jakkalsfontein, what is your expectation? 2. They only have to get a 3. 3 minus 2 is plus 1. If Singita gets a 9, 9 minus 10 minus 1. Success is results minus expectation. So who makes this mistake? Salespeople. They sell and they sell and the person buys. And they sell and they sell and they sell and they sell and they keep on selling. They are setting the operational team up for failure. Have you ever noticed when you go and buy something, let's say again, let's use the example of motor car. You go and buy a motor car, the most intelligent salespeople are quiet. You ask a question, does this thing have Apple CarPlay? Of course it does. Let me show you. Then they shut up, waiting for the next question. If they start telling you everything that the car has got from beginning to end, you're probably going to get bored, and there may be a feature in there that you don't like. So why do we keep on selling? You're only making it difficult in terms of delivery. Success results minus expectation. Okay. Now, every now and again, something will go wrong. In the hotel business, and we still own 15 hotels, as I'm standing here, there are people doing things that are wrong. What happens then is whenever there's a disaster, again, I've coined the phrase, there's a moment of truth. Because most people who arrive at a hotel, like our wanderers next door, what do you expect? That they've got your reservation, your room is clean, you go to your room. They don't need to do fruit baskets and wine and this and that and upgrades and all the kind of stuff. Just give the guest what they paid for. I rented a car at the airport today. I arrived at Bidvest Car Rental. I walked in, I said, hello. They said, hello, here's your keys, goodbye. That's all I want from them. The car was clean. It was standing in the correct bay. Off I went. Switch on High FM and I'm done. That's not hard. But imagine that they want to upgrade me. Now they've got to work out what's an upgrade. So they upgrade you from a Toyota Corolla to what? To a Toyota Corolla with a bigger engine. That's not an upgrade. An upgrade is a Lamborghini Aventador. Okay? Then you now, okay, now that's something to write home about. This is not an upgrade. So they don't do that anymore. I've taught them. I said, everybody's got a Toyota in Bay 37. Okay, all the car rental companies have. Right, so, and they all park them back to front. Have you noticed? Everyone does that stupid trick. You've got to maneuver in amongst the cars to get your stuff in the boot. Why don't they turn them the other way? Still don't know why they're doing it. That would be a differentiator in the car rental business. But anyway, I digress. So the moment of truth is when things go wrong. When somebody slips and falls, when You don't serve what you're supposed to serve. It's incorrect. The guests are happy. That's why all our GM's officers are in the lobby, so they can see them. And now you can take an MOT, moment of truth, and turn it into a moment of magic or a moment of misery. That's up to you. An MOT becomes a MOM or MOM. Moment of truth becomes a moment of magic or a moment of misery. Up to you to decide what. Because people will remember not the problem, but the way that you solved it. It's a great opportunity for you to turn somebody into a raving fan of your business because of the way that you solved it. Next question. Is the customer always right? Here's the answer. In answer to the question, is the customer always right? Irrelevant. The customer is always the customer. The customer is always the customer. It doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong. We get so obsessed with whether the customer is right or wrong that I arrive at the hotel, I go up to the front, I say, have you got a reservation for me? We don't. I say, but hey, I need to stay and I've got a meeting and I need to come Wickel. And they say, but you don't have a reservation. I say, but I do. Now, either they're right or I'm right. Now, smart people say, we've got some rooms to sell tonight. And what they say is, don't worry, there seems to be an admin error somewhere. Let's check you in and we'll deal with that later, tonight, tomorrow. Clever. That's a cleverer way of dealing with it and not confronting the customer. In the food business, when we serve what we call complex dishes, you get a chap from America, you serve him waterbloemmetjie breed, he gets it, he looks at it, it looks like dog food. Okay? And he's not wrong. So when he doesn't want it, what you do is you take it away. Get them something else. Our job, acquisition and maintenance of customers, job is not to prove they're right. You don't want to go and take out the old auntie's recipe and that's how she always made it. And you show her the is waterbloemmetjie breed, and I'm going to show you we cooked it like that. How are you winning this argument? It's an argument you can never win because you can never win an argument with a guest. Right. You got to have a plan in business. And Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until I hit them. Okay, and when I hit them, then they have got no more plan. They're fresh out of ideas. That's the time there's no more plan. So that's the opportunity for you. And many people make a plan and they keep on with that plan even when they know that plan is failing. I've got a sign in my office because even now in my dotage, in my retirement years and all that, people still pull in for a cup of coffee and a chat that talks like this. And my sign says, hope is not a strategy. Because when you talk to people and you say, how's business going? And they say, not great, but I hope it's going to be better tomorrow. I say, hope is not a strategy. You're not going to get there by hoping. You get there by all sorts of things. Hoping is not one of them. So don't ever tell me you hope it's going to get better, because that's the terrible way of doing it. So this happened to me a couple of years ago. I was staying at a hotel and we were sitting in the restaurant and somebody came out, the waiter, and I looked at him and I said to him, but you've got your thumb on my steak. And I said, why have you done that? And he said, because I don't want it to fall on the floor again. So then I went home to our team in Cape Town and I said, listen, hey, we better start training these people. Okay. And my very, very good friend, Human Resource Director Benjamin Mamani, and I sat down and we created the Protea Hotels Institute. We built a university and we trained people. Because one of the other directors said, what happens if we train them and then everybody comes and steals our people? Because a lot of these people get stolen by other companies. He says, what happens if we train them and they leave? I say, what happens if we don't train them and they stay? We put 1,000 people through hotel school to degree level, paid for by us, 100% by us, because we thought that was an important thing to do. Right. So those are basically a couple of the lessons. We're going to open the floor. I really hope that there's some questions.
So all your years in being involved in the business.
Many years, you mean? Yeah.
Many years.
Yeah. Yeah, half a century.
Half a century.
Yeah.
What would you say if somebody said, what's the most interesting or thing that's ever happened to you, or most frightening thing that's happened to you?
Great question. It's a great question. When we interview staff for our business, and when I do the interviews, I ask two questions. The first question is, what's the most interesting thing that ever happened to you? And people tell a story, and the story It doesn't really matter what the story is about, but people who can tell a good story are brilliant in the hospitality industry because they communicate well with guests, customers. The second question we ask is we say to them, what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you? Now, this is a serious business interview. Some of them look at you and say, nothing funny ever happened to me. Never, nothing. But some start telling you a story and it's not funny because you weren't there. But you know what? First sign of a great person is somebody who tells a funny story about themselves. So if you're looking for people with character and you hire those people because you want to find out what actually happened, right? Then I'll tell you the rest of the story. So that's one of the things that we do. We've written books about all of these stories that happen in a hotel business. You need to understand that if you're in a business where you're selling alcohol and bets, you don't have to be hell of a smart to work out what's going to happen next. So that, unfortunately, is my business. And so we deal with that every day. We deal with all these things with people misbehaving, and they have to be dealt with a great degree of decorum, and that's what we do. Last week at one of our game lodges, we had 2:30 in the morning, we had a leopard walk past all the bedrooms, caught on our security cameras. So what would you do? They're in their rooms, the doors are closed. Answer is you do nothing. You wait 6 months, and you post the video. So you just relax, calm down. You don't have to do. You said you have to do something. So we've got lots of those kind of examples. We had a wild dog chasing Impala into the swimming pool. Now the wild dog's there shouting at the Impala. Impala says, I'm not coming out of the pool. Now you've got to push the wild dog away, and the Impala's a hell of a mess. Any other questions? Now, I ended up in the hotel business by default. I wanted a motorbike, and my father wouldn't allow me to get one. Perfectly understandably. So I went to work in an ostrich show farm and then ended up at a place that was opening as a show farm because I was the only one who knew the tours in English, Afrikaans, and German, and wrote them all down. And while I was there, I was working the hotel. Then I caught the general manager stealing, so I fired him. At that point, I was in standard 8 or grade 10. So I was at school during the day, and afternoons I went and worked at the hotel. Then I helped the owners find a new manager, which they did. And then I thought this was lekker. The only problem was at that stage, I was 15 and I wasn't allowed in the bar. And then I paid your dad the princely sum of R2 an hour as my flying instructor. And I got my pilot's license with your dad as a result of the R2 an hour. Because my father said, you can have my aeroplane for nothing, but you are going to be paying for the instructor. And that's what it cost in 1973. Can you believe it? Yeah, how old that is. Brilliant question. I need a partner in my business. I realized that I need a partner. When we moved into the 9 countries in Africa, not one of them did we do on our own. In every single one of those countries, we had a 50% partner. So in Nigeria, where they say it's impossible, we had a guy who's a medical doctor, MBA, and his team were all CAs. And I promise you, these people were proper. And they joined us. And we had a 50-50 joint venture. We had the same in Zambia. We had the same everywhere else we were. And the reason why is we said we need somebody to work with us. So please read what Adisa says on complementary teams and why you need somebody who's different to you and why you need to find a way of disagreeing in an agreeable way. There's no point in finding somebody who's got your strengths. This is wasting your time. You want somebody who's got other strengths. So here's a quick story. I got married to Lauren 23 years ago, and she's got a master's degree in social work. And I'd come across some psychological stuff done by a guy called Andy Lothian called Insights. And basically, there are 4 humors and 4 colors and so on. Right. So she was in America. So we didn't have an affair. She was there. Oh, yeah. I split up with my ex-wife. I was living on my own. She would split up with her husband. We'd known each other from before, and we kind of connected over the phone. And we went away for our first weekend, first opportunity together. But by this stage, we'd spoken for 6 months every day on the phone, right? Good start to a relationship. But I asked her to fill in a form, which is an insights form, right? And we sat down in Chicago in a coffee shop, and I gave her a printout, and I said, tell me something, is this you? Here's a pencil, circle everything that's not you. And she said, have you had black people following me? I mean, how do you get all this stuff? And her colors are green, yellow. And I said, well, now let me give you mine. So I'm red yellow. So the color we're missing is blue. Okay? So there's a third person in our relationship. That's Yvonne Kivit. And Yvonne is blue. And Yvonne is our accountant and our financial person, and she runs our lives. If she tells us what to do, we do it. Because we recognize that's the one that we're missing. And when Lauren and I speak to each other, we speak in a language that the other person is likely to receive the information. So I know that if Lars under stress, if you squeeze an orange, what do you get?
Juice.
Orange juice. No, you get orange juice. Not orange juice, you get orange juice. You can't get tomato juice or apple juice. You get orange juice. So if you get orange juice, so when you're under stress and pressure, you become more like yourself. You become more like you actually are. So that's what happens when you're under pressure. So when Lauren gets under pressure, she's quiet, she's soft, she's introverted, okay? And if I want to speak to her about something, I speak quietly and softly. She knows when I'm under drip, I've got a motto: be brief, be bright, be God. Come quickly, give me an executive summary. Just check you later. So because we know that about each other, we're able to do that. So we are a complementary team, but we understand what our weaknesses are, and that's how we do it. Okay? So Lauren, which some of you may know, see these bracelets? She started this thing. It's called Relate. Bracelets. I was the lender of last resort, they're like those. And this year, we will have done, it's 100% for profit business for the beneficiaries. We will have given away 90 million rand from zero. Now, people say people with her energies can't do that. Guess what? She bloody well did it very, very well. That's an excellent point. So you've got to get your USP, unique selling proposition. And we said that Protea was as different as the people who stay in it. And one of the things that I did, I was sitting with the head of the creative agency, and he was coming up with another bullshit TV program and print ads. So we got the music for Cheers, we got all that. We got the rights for Africa's Toto, and we composed songs, we did stuff, and all very lekker. But the problem is people weren't coming. And this guy sat with us, Kevin Aspas, and he said, he was CEO of Jupiter Drawing Room, and he said, I don't like your advertising. I said, how can you not like it? You did it. He says, because every time I sit with you, you oaks are mad. You are nuts. When the 3 or 4 of you that do the stuff come in here, it's like a madhouse. So we created a thing called Protea Hotels, having a little fun. And we created 1,000 things of having a little fun. And we put them in drip feed. And I'm at home one night and the phone rings and it's David Kramer and he can't speak. He said, I just saw body lotion and on it says shampoo for bald people. He says, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. So we did things like, we have no gym, just feel free to run up and down the stairs. So we had 1,000 of those things. We drip fed them in. We had a thing, for example, we invented a game called toilet tennis. So you go and sit in the toilet like this, and it says, congratulations, you've won a game of toilet tennis. Look left. You see, your sign says, look right. So look right, look left, look right, look left, look right. Now, toilet tennis, you see? So those are today what you'd call Instagrammable moments. And what we did is we took a stock standard product and differentiated by making it a bit different. And so we did that. And customer service was, we won the coolest brand in South Africa for 10 years in a row. We won the best hotel brand, all that stuff. Because that's how we just were different. And we were prepared to be different. Something, by the way, that the big brands can't do. They're too bureaucratic. So if you are helping people, or if you own businesses that are small, think about what your competitors can't do. Otto and I were partners for over 40 years. We never had a disagreement, ever. I mean, we would disagree whether we should paint the wall white or green. But the way we solved that, we said, okay, what turns on it? Nothing. So you do it. No, you do it your way. We would have constructive conversations, but we never had a disagreement. We never fought. And you know that all our partners in Africa, every single one of them came through for us. And that was Otto's genius, was selecting people that we could work with. And he checked the people, the integrity, because that's a go, no-go decision. If you end up with people that you can't work with, you kill the project right there. And we did that on the boards. We did that with our GMs. In fact, we so often spoke about the fact that, I would speak at GMs conferences and I'd say, can some of you please bugger off? You've been here your whole careers. You started here and you're ending it. Go out, go find something else to do. No, we love it here. There's a problem. So that's why we were growing. Because when you're growing, you can promote from within. I can count on one hand the GMs that we brought in from the outside. If we had a very specific hotel in a very specific location and we didn't have anybody, like at the opening of the World Cup, we opened 6 hotels on the same day. You just don't have enough people. But otherwise, you move somebody across, take a deputy, move them in, and so on and so forth. So we worked very, very hard on the people. So the question is this. How do we define service excellence? How do we know that we're achieving service excellence? And there is a book called The Ultimate Question. If you haven't read it, read it. Ultimate question is this. So I'm going to quickly give you the shortcut for this. So how it works, ultimate question is this. How likely on a scale of 1 to 10 are you to recommend this hotel to friends and family? That's the ultimate question. Now, you see, I can advertise all I like. I can go on social media and shout and scream until the cows come home. The point is nobody's going to believe me because they know I've got a vested. If I tell you people, you must go to the Wanderers and stay there, you say that you own the place. It's right. It's a good answer. Okay, that's exactly correct because that's what I would tell you because I've got a vested interest. But if your friend who you know and trust, the person sitting next to you, tells you should really go and stay at Kruger Gate, you trust them because they don't have a dog in the fight. They're telling you honestly. So if you would only recommend something, again, let's go back to the motor car story. Would you recommend the car that you're currently driving to a member, a friend, or family, and the dealership and all that? Everything in one question. And if the answer is yes, you represent truth, honesty, and sincerity in terms of what you're doing. And if the answer is no, well, then they better be thinking about it because actually they're doing something wrong. Now you can delve into why. So I had to fight with Marriott. They've got 10,000 hotels. This is a proper big organization. And I said to them, you are asking people the wrong questions. And it's called perspective. So here's my story about perspective. In the days that we used to fill in guest comment cards, we used to fill in forms with ticks. And we used to tick in a box what you liked and whatever. And a lady called Yvonne Kivit, who's now our PA, was in charge of customer complaints. We had a whole slew of those people sitting there. And somebody said, I stayed in room 239 in Knysna. It is, without question, the worst hotel in the entire universe. It looks out on the Pick and Pay car park. The staff are disgusting. The meals are inedible. The place is dirty. I hate the hotel. Now, even if you're not in the hotel business, you would recognize that as a moment of truth. Okay? He's not ambiguous about his feelings about the hotel. So I said to Yvonne, thank you, I'll take that one, I'm going to phone him. But I looked down, and the next comment said this, said, what a delightful hotel. What wonderful staff. The food is fantastic. Loved having it here. Just best hotel I've ever stayed in. Room 239 in Knysna. So I had to find out more. The first one was a guy from Joburg who went down to go and sell some engineering products in Knysna. There were no mobile phones, obviously. I'm talking about before the Rinderpest, when I was running that company. He drove from here to Knysna. It was pouring with rain in the Karoo. He got there exhausted to find out that his meeting was cancelled. So he had to sleep a bit and go back again. The other two, were a German couple on honeymoon. They were just delighted. I don't know why we've got honeymoon suites. I don't understand why we have. That's the room that should look at the Pick and Pay car park, and you just undercut the door so you can slide pizzas and pancakes there. They're not going out for nothing. They want to be in the hotel room. That's what, as long as they've got a bed in it, they're cool. See? Room with a different view. Same room, different guest, different perspective. So from that, we learn that every single guest has their own perspective. And we've got to work on each individual guest's perspective. And we've got to learn from them. Anybody else? So we've had BEE partners long before BEE became a thing, before it was fashionable to do BEE. Rule Kosa was telling me the other day, we had a board meeting. He says to me, you and I are both ancestors. We were both dead. We actually, it's not even us here. So we're ancestors. They must all listen to us. Because Rule became, long before he became chairman of Nedbank and chairman of Eskom and chairman of Discovery Bank, he was on our board. He didn't even have a doctorate, let alone 3. Because we found him, because Rule is non-negotiable about ethics. It's not a story with him. It's a simple, is what we're doing the right thing? And when Otto put our company together, the shareholders agreement said, on every decision, it has to be unanimous. And the lawyer said to him, you are genuinely stupid because you're going to be unanimous on nothing. Nothing. But if we were sitting here and we were the board of directors and we said, should we go and open a hotel in Jacobsfontein? And this is the owner, and we've all met the owner and all that. And everybody said yes, and one person said, I'm just not comfortable. There's something that doesn't, not square. We didn't do it because our purpose was not making money. Our purpose was the acquisition and maintenance of customers. And we said that bad apple is going to infect everybody else. So we just simply did that. You know that in all the years, because we didn't change partners, our partners, they were there. Sam Nematsarani, Husim Koye, Investec, all the same people. Not only did we not have a majority vote or unanimous vote, we never, ever had a vote. Ever. You go back through our minutes, not once did we ever vote. Because you either convince me or I convince you. And if we don't, if we still have different opinion, we go outside after the meeting, we raise it at the next meeting. And if we still disagree, we don't do it. Simple as that. That's the way that we ran that company forever. And occasionally, yes, we did sign up with the wrong people. And in the beginning, we started with no money. We had no money. They took out key man insurance on me and Otto. Okay. So we're sitting at the doctors. We had to go for our medicals. And we're there and like this. And now they're doing blood samples. And he says, they've taken everything. Now they're taking our blood. They've got everything else. They've got our cars and our houses. Flat, little cut flat that I own. And now they're taking our blood. So that was how that worked, right? And here you sit. But one of our directors said the day we come of age is the day we disenfranchise somebody who's prepared to pay fees. Because we used to say, no, if they don't pay fees, we'll scoop them. That's not the high water mark. High water mark is you scoop them when they behave poorly, when they do bad things. That's when ethics starts to work. And we celebrated that first one that we threw out. We did it with much aplomb. And we threw them out, said, that's it. Now, if anybody else chooses not to do the right thing, we'll throw you out as well. Go.
Why did you sell?
Why did I sell? Can you see how old and tired I am?
But you sold and then you bought and then you.
Her father was my flying instructor. He told me, there's a time to take off and a time to land. Okay? I tell you what, it's better to be standing down here wishing you were up there than being up there and wishing you were down there. So now I sell my company, and now they say, you like the whole company, you're such a lekker, you're the best. We'll buy it, provided you sign a 10-year service agreement. I said, what? 10 years? Are you insane? So I sold it with a 0 service agreement. I sold it to people who thought they knew better. They're a big company, they're going to sort it out. Lekker. So what did we negotiate? You may not fire a member of staff for 18 months. Not one. You have to keep the brands. You have to keep every owner. I had 50 things. The price was the very last item on the agenda. The very last point.
So
I said, but I'm gone. Huh?
what do you do now?
Me. So we own the hotels. They run them for us. Yes, but I retired from that on Monday. Now. And my son took over.
Cheers.
Appointed by the board. Hire for attitude and train for skill. There are very few jobs in our business that I can't take somebody who has had virtually no education. How long do you think it takes me to train a receptionist? A day. I mean, okay, if you need a chief engineer who's got to be, air conditioning mechanic. Okay, fair enough. Or a CA to be your accountant. All right. But for most of the jobs, the customer-facing jobs, A waiter, give me somebody, I'll train them. If they come with the right attitude, if they walk up to the table and they smile and they say, welcome, it's great to have you here. And you say to them, what do you recommend on the menu? And they say, I think the pizza is great. They've just won Employee of the Year. Why? They don't recommend the most expensive Chateaubriand, because the minute that you do that, the customer suspects your motive. They say, oh, he's on a commission to sell that cup. He must sell what he feels like. He must eat everything and try it and sell whatever he wants. Those are the kind of things. Hire for attitude and train for skills. And that's, I would say to you, on every single business. I mean, unless you're doing brain surgery, then I would suggest you get somebody qualified. People say that if they added up the mistakes, we probably made 49% mistakes and 51% good decisions. I had the privilege of lecturing in Singapore with a guy called Jim Collins. You may have heard of Jim, Good to Great and all that stuff. And Jim wrote a book about how great our companies succeed. Okay? But he did a private lecture with me. I did the customer service nonsense, this stuff. And then I actually only went to Singapore to listen to him, but I was on the podium with him. So you remember he said the top companies in America, the top 300 companies are these ones. And then he went back 10 years later, and most of them had gone. There were only 50 of the 300 left. So he asked a question of the group, and I'm going to ask you the same question as well. Out of all the companies out there, who do you think had better luck and who had worse luck? His research showed this. Every single company and every single person gets the same amount of luck. The difference is how you deal with it. And high performance people, you've seen that stat about Roger Federer and the number of games that he won. The individual points that were won by him and the individual games, but he won more sets and he won more championships and he won more tournaments. Because when the big moments came, he actually pushed home. So the question is not whether you get good luck or bad luck. So I'll tell you a story. I'm going to ask everybody here to do that. I'm going to ask you a question. The question is, in terms of everything, your life, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the hand that you were dealt? That you were dealt originally? 1 to 10. Your height, your skin color, your gender, your money you had, the opportunities, scale of 1 to 10. Okay. Everybody got a number. I don't want you to share it with anyone. Okay. I'll tell you this story. It's irrelevant what your score is. Because some people were dealt terrible, terrible hands. And some people were dealt fantastic hands. Loving parents, great school, great university, great opportunities. And nobody gives a shit. They care about how well you played the hand that you were dealt. So a friend of mine, very close friend, is Victor Vermeulen. I don't know if any of you ever met Vic. Dived into swimming pool, aged 19, and severed his spinal cord. He's the best sportsman South Africa's ever known. He captained South Africa's Craven Week rugby team, and he hit 175 not out for Western Transvaal at Lords. Okay? And he dived in the swimming pool, and he's been a quadriplegic ever since. So when you ask Vic, he wrote a book called The Victor Within. If you can have the opportunity to read his book, Forward is by Nelson Mandela and Christopher Reeve. And Vic and I have traveled all over the world telling our stories together. And when you ask Vic, how are you? When he comes on stage and his mother pushes him on stage, you feel sorry for him. And he starts telling you a story. He starts telling you about some funny things that happened to him and whatever. He can only move his shoulders. Okay? He can type with his head, can't move anything. And he says, I am the luckiest guy who's ever lived in the whole world. And within 2 minutes, you forget he's in a wheelchair and you start to understand. He says, I've traveled to every country in the world. I've had the opportunity of influencing millions of people. Imagine that. I would never have had that had I not been quadriplegic. And is it horrible sometimes? He calls it my concrete body. Yeah. But you know what? He says, I'm delighted with the way that I've actually played my hand. And he is, and he should be, and he's brilliant. Another very good friend is Alison Botha, the woman who was raped outside Port Elizabeth. And what she did and how she came back. And again, I've taken her also all over the world. We've spoken in Switzerland. Germany and all over. And again, these are people who have triumphed over their circumstance. It is terrible, it is horrific, it is horrible. It's the worst thing that could ever happen. But you know what? They've made something out of nothing. And you sit there and you say to yourself, how dare I complain about my circumstance? Whatever it is. When I look at these people and I see how they played their hand. Because many people get dealt a 9 and they play at a 2. Our job is not to play at a 2. Our job is to play the hand we were dealt. Because you know what? There's bugger all you can do about the hand that you were dealt. You had nothing to do with it. This is your parents and genetics and all that stuff. Anybody else? Again, a great question. And what you do is you put people around you that are not necessarily your friends, and people, you could be that group for each other. Split into small groups of 5 or 6, and in a completely confidential environment, you share your situation with other people who come from different backgrounds and so on, and say, what I'd like to do is this. And they will tell you honestly what they think, like a private board of directors. And you do that for each other because it's extremely difficult if you're in the situation. Your problem is you actually know too much. So because you know too much and because you tried something and it didn't work, what they may say, yes, but that was then. Maybe you tried the right thing, but at the wrong time. Or maybe the idea won't work. Listen, I'm the king of that shit. I started off a thing called Protea Hotels self-catering. And we lost 2.5 million rand, and then we shut it down. Because I decided we were geniuses at the hotel business. We also be geniuses at self-catering. So what was that idea? That was Airbnb. But it was 35 years too early. And then I decided it was the wrong name. And then I lost 4.5 million rand. And I closed that down as well, because it also didn't work. So how did we do that? We had a thing at Protea. One day we were talking about exactly the subject, and we decided that we would have an award called the Golden Lemon. And the Golden Lemon is a person who makes the biggest cock up every year. So the very first one went to Otto Stellick. He decided to import a container of Löwenbräu beer, and being Austrian, he tells you the best beer in the world. And he imported a container of the shit, and he gave away a case to each of the directors, and he went to the hotel GMs and told them to sell it. And in those days, the only beer that was ever sold was SA Brewery products. And at the end of 6 months, he opened the container to find that all the beer had gone off, because beer's got a shelf life, something that people who aren't in the beer business don't necessarily know. So we gave Otto the first Golden Lemon Award. We had a black tie event. His family were there. He got up, he made a speech. He thanked everybody for their participation in allowing him, for the GMs for not selling the beer, for his partners for not pushing it, for all of us. He says he would never have been able to win this award. And of all the awards that he's won everywhere, he's like got a knighthood from the Austrian government. He says, this is the most significant thing that ever happened to me, and I just want to thank everybody for it. Okay, the next year, predictably, I won. You didn't have to be very clever to work that out. Well, there were lots of things they could do with me. And then people were, like, I'd sit in my office and I had a sign outside that said, please disturb. And the general consensus was that I was very disturbed already, so it wouldn't make any difference. And whoever I was talking to, they could disturb me if there was a guest that had a problem. Okay? And the other thing they could disturb me for was Golden Lemon. And people would run in and say, guess what? I've been nominated. I've just done something so incredibly stupid. So we learned this lesson from NASA, who sent a man to the moon. And they said you can make 2 rules, only 2 rules. You can make any mistake you like, provided you don't make it twice, because we don't reward stupidity here. And second of all, you have to tell somebody about it, because your mistake can cost somebody their life. So I got away with that because Protea self-catering and places were 2 different things. But then I didn't try it again. I learned my lesson. We fortunately had a massive team, and what I knew was that everybody in the team was actually better than me. So, you know, if I needed HR stuff done, Benji did it. If I needed marketing done, Alan did it. Sales, Danny, and we deferred to project specialists. And in a smaller business, you'd be amazed at the number of people around you who can help you. But most of us, I think we're such geniuses that we don't ask the people around us for their comments and their ideas. And it's sitting having a coffee and having a chat. And we always have lunch on a Friday now with our officers. And anybody can throw anything on the table. There's nothing that they can't talk about. So people say, I've thought about this process and I think we can do it quicker and better and cheaper and whatever. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So what? We're not running a popularity contest here. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Play it out. Next. We also had one very important concept, and that's the concept of the diamond. And that is somebody pulls a piece of coal out of the ground and they pass it around and each person puts a facet on it. And when it's got 49 facets on it, then it's a diamond. Now, who pulled it out of the ground? Should they get the reward? Or should each person who added a facet? And the answer is it doesn't matter because everybody's contributing to it. And so by everybody contributing, that's how you get to the answer. And many of the things that we did, if you ask people whose idea was the golden lemon, everybody will put their hand up. And I don't mind. I think that's fantastic that everybody feels ownership in coming up with ideas. Also, by the way, gyms is a new thing, as are spas. That was not an available illness when we started. So we didn't have them. They had a bicycle that they got from Game, a home bicycle, that was the gym. So we built gyms. Now we've got techno gyms. The bloody things cost 2 million rand each. But we started with nothing. And gradually, as guests' requirements changed. And when you ask them the ultimate question, and they give you a 9 out of 10, and you say to them, what is it that we can do to improve? And they tell you, having a gym. Just listen. Put in a gym. But floor space is very important in a hotel. And so to do that and to do it properly, it costs money. And that's why I think you've got the edge. And you can do this mobile spa. Anyway, it's great idea, right time. Go and talk to them. And don't talk to Protea. Talk to every hotel that you can lay your hands on. Get references. And when you leave there, if they don't want to do it, say, have you got any friends in the business that I can go and see? So we have a very sophisticated margin management program where everything is measured. The main management team never, ever looked at those. And we never, ever looked at profit, ever. For the reason I told you, we don't look at the goal. So our point was, are we acquiring and maintaining our customers? That's the only ratio. Now, as it happens, from the day we started, we grew by 25% per annum compound. From then until today. So that's what we did. But that wasn't how we reckon if you do all the stuff right, if you do it right for the right reason, then the result will come. But you make a huge mistake if you try and focus on saying, we made 200 million profit this year, we need 225 next year. I've just been through that with my board. They said, your budget's conservative. I said, yes, and? They said, sorry, we asked. We don't see the budget as the end. In some of our hotels, we exceed the budget by 2, 3, 4 million rand a month profit. Exceed. But the budget's a budget. Like I told you, what has Trump done while we've been sitting in this meeting? God only knows. 500% duties to everybody. I don't know what he's done. Start fighting with Turkey. I don't know what he's done. So how can I plan for that? I can only plan for it when it happens and I think about it. And that's what you've got to be. You've got to be nimble. You've got to be on your feet. When something happens, you've got to say, right, now, how does that affect me? It either doesn't affect you at all, or it does affect you. And if it does affect you, then make a plan, Stan. That's why you're there. All righty. Can I go back to Cape Town? Thank you. So just before I go, I'm going to give you one more for the road. And this time it's personal. So you can use this in your business and also in your personal life. When you are communicating with someone, when you're having a discussion, have you ever had a discussion with a spouse or with a child or with a parent or with a partner and you're just not on the same page? Okay, and there's an acronym which is HEART, H-E-A-R-T, and this is how it goes. I want you to think about these things and write them down quickly because, again, we're going to do this at speed. H, hear me. When you're talking to someone, their first requirement is hear me. Don't start thinking what you're going to say the minute my lips stop moving. Hear not only what I'm saying, but also what I'm feeling. How are you? I'm okay. How are you? I'm okay. Same words, very different meaning. I did that last night with a member of our family who's been to see a friend who's got cancer, and I could hear that he was really taking strain. And so I just spoke to him and I said, what did it feel like being there, watching this guy that you'll probably never see alive again? And it was very emotional. But afterwards, he thanked me and said, thank you for listening to me. Hear me. E, even if you disagree with me, don't make me wrong. Even if you disagree with me, don't make me wrong. So there's a very good South African expression which goes ja nee. Okay? In English, yes, but. So somebody's telling you something, you say yes, but. The yes, but is equal to no. Rather say no. Even if you disagree with me, don't make me wrong. That's your opinion, and you're entitled to an opinion. So don't sit there and try and make the other person wrong. Listen, hear them, okay? Even if you disagree with me. A, acknowledge the greatness within me. So this is the story of Constance Skosana. Moffat Skosana was our driver. And Constance, also obviously from Zimbabwe, his wife, used to make tea in the office. In those days, I don't know, maybe we had 30 people, 20 people in the office, I don't know. And the deal was that she had to bring the empty Nestle tin to us to get a new full one. You can't trust her, right? So one day I sit with Mama Skosana and I say, just tell me a bit about yourself. Okay? And what's your greatness? And she said, my greatness is singing in the church choir. I love being in the church choir. And this is what I do. And I go home and I practice. And on Sundays I sing. And the lead singer, and I said, sing something for me. She went in my office. And she's singing. There everybody outside listening there. And I say, what else do you do? She says, no, we run a stokvel. I said, and how do you run the stokvel? Now everybody gives us money. Okay, and what do you do with it? She says, no, I keep the money, my job, I'm the treasurer. Okay. And then what do you do? When people need, then I go and give it to them. Okay. And I'm going to give you today's terms. And how much money you got at the moment? Now I've got 45 million rand. Right. And I said, what are you doing with it? She says, well, I've got some RAs. And then I'm looking at the bond market in the UK, which I think is overheated at the moment. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to actually buy. So I said, hang on a second, call everybody in. I said, okay, this is the woman you don't trust with a tin of Nescafe. Just want to make sure that you understand. Okay, we never had that discussion ever again with anybody in the company. See, okay, acknowledge the greatness within me. A. R, remember to look for my loving intention. So when somebody says something, they're saying something to you that you might not like to hear, but they generally are doing it. They're telling you this with love. If it's not your friend who says, listen, I've never had this happen to me, but it could. Your hairstyle doesn't suit you. Nobody's ever said that to me because it hasn't been applicable. But maybe somebody says to you, maybe, this gray stuff is, diet or good extensions. What? Yeah. Remember to look for my loving intention. Okay. And T, tell me the truth with compassion. Tell me the truth, but tell it to me with compassion. And if you remember that acronym and try it in your marriage, try it with your children, try it with your parents, try it with your friends. And I just suggest that you're going to be much richer as a result of having done that. Thank you for your time.